Buonasera a tutti e a tutte dalla pagina del Lucca Film Festival Europa Cinema. Io sono Nicola Borrelli, presidente del festival. Fra poco abbiamo qui con noi il nostro amico, collaboratore Paolo Zelati, con il quale abbiamo condiviso tanti ricordi, in primis Giorgio Romero nel 2016, e poi due ospiti d'eccezione, Joe Dante e Mick Garris, che erano con noi proprio all'ultimo festival 2019 dell'anno scorso. Last year you presented at our festival your latest film, Nightmare Cinema. How bad is the nightmare that movie theaters are living, and how do you think they come it out?
Well, it's going to be a little while. I mean, some of them are opening. Warner Brothers has a movie called Tenet that they are banking a lot on, hoping that it's going to be able to be playing in IMAX theaters this summer. I don't necessarily think that that's likely to happen because there's been so much less social distancing here over the past several weeks that I think there's going to be a big spike in the disease, and I think they're not going to be able to open the things. Well, I mean, before the recent unpleasantness here, they were finally started to let people go into restaurants and supposedly eat in a staggered fashion, but that's all on hold now because we have our own political problems here in addition to the virus. So I think that everybody's hoping that it won't take much longer, but it's going to take a while.
It's a scary time here, and when they talk about opening the movie theaters, they say no more than 50% capacity. There are a handful of drive-in theaters that have been revived or still exist, but it's a very small handful. When the #1 movie at the drive-in circuit or the whole thing in the country grossed $350,000, that tells you what movie-going is like. Drive-ins could be viable, but there's not enough to support a film industry.
And so what's going on in your country?
It's not very well.
What?
We can organize a screening, but not more than 200 people. Inside. Outside, if you would organize an event, it's 1,000 people at the moment, yeah.
Well, that's a lot more than we have.
Yep. Well, it's going to take a lot of tickets to pay for the Christopher Nolan movie in that one.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So, guys, first of all, I bring you the greetings of Stefano Giorgi that will be with us tonight. It says, send his love to you. And first of all, I'd like to know what you guys brought with you from Lucca. What do you remember about the experience at the festival? Of course, if you had fun and whatever you remember, the best thing, the best remembering you have of the festival.
My favorite memory is walking into the plaza and seeing this gigantic poster with my picture on one side and Mick's picture on the other, as if we were like, big names. So it was very exciting. But it's a beautiful town, and the accommodations were wonderful, and the people were great, and it was just it's such a haven it's not part of the big city. It's its own little enclave, and it's like going back into the past. It was very very satisfying, I thought.
Well, it was such a great experience because the festival at Lucca is very intimate. We got to meet a lot of the fans and people and just hang out with people that you wouldn't ordinarily do on a big scale festival. And the intimacy of it and the beauty of the town is so great. Having that Italian premiere of Nightmare Cinema, everyone was so enthusiastic, and then being able to do the podcast live with Joe with the audience there. It was just the perfect several days to spend in Italy, and we really never left the town except for one brief excursion, and just had nothing but fun there, and the gelato was great.
So I want to go back to what you guys were telling at the beginning of your impression about this riot situation, because from here we saw the video, I had the impression that this was just the bomb that exploded, that has inside everything, all the fear for what is happening after COVID, the frustration of the people that been, stuck at home, and of course the usual, problem of black people being killed like no justice existence. So what's your experience? I spoke with Jonathan Zarantonello, that you guys know from LA yesterday, and he told me that it feels like to be into the purge completely and what can you tell me about it?
Well, it is a little bit like that. It does feel that way. But it's all been exacerbated by the fact that people have been, had to stay home for a couple of months, and they're very antsy and they want to get out, and they're restless. But also, it's what's brought it to a head is that after how many years of watching innocent people be killed on camera by the police, who always get away with it. Finally, this one, which is so egregious and so protracted and so horrible, it finally just broke. I mean, and it's going to be different than the others. The tendency is like, we'll get through this and then we'll shove it under the rug and everything will go back to normal and people will behave as they did. I don't think that's going to be possible now.
Yeah, they never indicted the cops before. And now you have one cop with his knee on a throat for 9 minutes and 3 other cops watching and cheering him on. It just becomes a breaking point. And then you have the rallying cry of this fucking orangutan in the White House, who, what kind of person has peaceful protesters tear gassed in order to clear the way for him to go across the street and take a picture of himself holding the Bible?
Right.
So unconscionable. And it's this, I was around for Rodney King and all the riots that happened in LA at that time. It was really scary. This is lasting longer. It hasn't been quite as hugely incendiary yet, but it's lasting longer, and it's pretty frightening, and it's really tough for all of the cities in which this is taking place, but it's even tougher for the African Americans who've had to suffer this throughout their lives.
And as many of them point out, this is the way we live all the time. Yeah. And of course, for those of us who are privileged to not have to do that, we don't live with the constant fear that we're walking down the street or bird watching or anything that we do that normal people do, and then suddenly we're going to get corralled for it because we don't look the same as everybody else.
Yeah. The fear. Yeah.
Right. Do you think that these riots, whatever, they will end it or not, and maybe disjoined from this COVID situation, will maybe change a little bit things for African American in America this time for real? Or do you think that everything will get back as normal, in terms of law? I don't mean in terms of mood of the people that will never go back the same, but in terms of law, like real law.
No, that's the hope, but I don't think that most of the people who have been through this before have a lot of faith in the idea that things are going to change. But however this does end up shaking itself out, it is going to be, for various reasons, a different society than the one that it was just 3 months ago.
Well, I think what's happening with these compound issues of the COVID-19 and these riots is it becomes even more apparent to that handful of people who are on the edge between the right and the left, the supporters of Trump, who at this point, there are a lot of them who are bailing on him. He's just so atrocious and so hateful in his handling of this that something has to become so bad that it makes for change. I'd like to be like Anne Frank and think that most people are basically good. And I do think that. And I hope that we can keep it up without having to turn to violence and the like. But I just hope there's an awakening for the people who need it. I don't think most of the people who need it are going to have that awakening, but I do think some of them will.
He still has almost the 40% that he won on the election. They some of them have drifted away, but most of them not. And these are people who are, deeply angry, and they're facing people on the other side who are also deeply angry. And that usually leads to some sort of conflagration. And we can only hope that that's not going to be the case. But, you know, he's already started legal maneuvers to try to get around the idea that the National Guard is not supposed to be used to police the public. And there are various 1800s laws that they can use to get over that. And I think that anything he can do to, I won't say cause a race war, because that's what Charlie Manson wanted. That was his big dream. But it's going to be the closest thing, and it's also a class war.
But I would quote one of your movie here, and I would say Second War, because I've never been so close to something like that before.
No, we haven't. This is it's on the brink, you know. And which way will we fall? I don't know.
And at this point, I would like to quote one of your movie, Mick, The Stand. I don't even have to make a question. Go ahead.
Well, you know, obviously we went through the virus on The Stand, but that killed 99% of the human population. There's a big difference here with COVID-19. But one thing about The Stand that was important to me was being able to take back the word patriot, you know, to try and start society over with the philosophy that the American nation was founded upon, of equality and democracy. And you're starting over, and even with that, there are two camps fighting one another. But it was the opportunity to look at an American flag and reclaim it for what it was meant to be, not becoming this reactionary right-wing symbol.
Yeah, it's very scary. And what you guys can tell me about the situation in Hollywood, like the studio system, the business, how this situation blocked, because I know that the whole studios are being closed, everything's been completely locked down. And
yeah,
what do you think is going to happen in the business right now? Because we were talking about cinema before, but my friend is the director here in Mantova, and he said, well, they say that we can open the 15th of June, but except for Nolan, that we don't have any movies to show, because they completely, and they can't live with the Italian little stupid comedies that nobody goes to see or whatever, because we don't have any industry anymore. They live with those 9-10 blockbusters from US. So even if they can open, they don't have any movies. And what's the situation in Hollywood right now? When do you think they could back to normality in terms of production?
It's never going to be normal. It's never going to be what it was before. There's already a couple of white papers out from the various unions and talking about the new restrictions that would have to be in place in order for people to actually make movies, and we can't do them the way that we used to do them. We can't have huge amounts of people gathered together in one place anymore. You're going to see there's very little travel going to be involved in making whatever we make in the next year. The idea of, you know, going to different places and making Mission Impossible and having it half shot in different countries, that's out, because just the getting there, the travel and the amount of quarantine that has to go on. It's everybody's looking at it with kind of rose-colored glasses, thinking, well, you know, all we have to do is we could just put these protocols in place and serve people box lunches and then everything will be fine. It's so complicated. Making movies is such a complex thing that it involves so many layers of people working with each other intimately, that to just sort of, we'll just make green screen movies now, you know. I mean, obviously there are a number of movie or TV shows that couldn't finish out their run and have resorted to animation and just having animated sections to fill in the parts of the script that they couldn't shoot. But the whole idea of, and also the idea of opening theaters, you know, it doesn't matter what you're playing. How many people are going to want to go there? How many people are actually going to want to sit in a theater with people coughing, and risk their health to see a movie that eventually they're going to see on television. So
Well,
it's very sad for exhibitors. It's a lot of theaters are going to be gone.
One answer to that was when they opened the beaches one weekend, they were mobbed with all of these people without masks and all of that stuff. So who knows about that? But Tyler Perry.
Do you want to be in a movie theater with those people? I sure don't.
I'm just saying there will.
And we're the ones who actually go to the movies. People our age, most people don't go.
Yeah.
They don't. Yeah.
Well, Tyler Perry's doing something really interesting. He owns his own studio in Atlanta, and it was a former military barracks. So he has all these apartments and things. Everybody who works on the film lives on the studio lot in Atlanta.
And can't leave. And it's very much like prison. Once you get in, and you can't even just get in, you have to be quarantined before you can get in. Then once you get in, you can't leave. You have to only do this. And if anybody gets sick, and they happen to be a lead actor or the director or whatever, then they either have to be replaced or they have to be jettisoned from the establishment because you don't want them spreading. Blumhouse has a similar arrangement at Universal. They think they're going to be able to make some lower budget pictures by never leaving the lot and having people putting them up at the Sheraton Hotel and all that, which is, it's possible for certain kinds of movies that you could get away with that. But that's not exactly going back into production.
Yeah, how many do you think will increase production cost?
Oh, it's going to be much more. Everything's going to take longer and cost more money. And the mantra of making movies is, how can we make it cheaper? What can we do to make it, to not have to spend the money and make more on the other end? Well, I don't know what the impetus is going to be to go ahead and make more movies if it's going to cost so much money. And obviously, they're still going to make the blockbuster movies, but as far as the regular movies that you sort of used in between the blockbusters, it's hard enough to get an independent movie off the ground now. But if an independent movie is going to have to cost 3 times more because it's got to take longer to shoot, I think people should say, no, we're not going to do it.
And audiences have been shying away from those mid-range and lower range budget movies for a long time. The only ones that seem to have a theatrical life are the blockbusters.
And the horror movies.
And the horror movies, yeah.
But again, horror movies are best enjoyed in an audience, and comedies, the same thing. You can't get the same experience from those kind of movies by just watching them at home. Yeah. You have to see them with an audience. And as soon as people start laughing, they're spewing. So,
screaming and laughing spew.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, both those kind of films encourage spewing.
You guys have movies with no emotions at all.
That's it. That's what we.
But we make all the Bresson movies.
Exactly. Now, I'd like to ask the both of you, what did you do during the quarantine?
What do you think we did? We did nothing.
Cooking.
Well,
catch up with some movies that you didn't see. I still have a bunch of things from the Academy from my last, and I don't even know if there's going to be an Oscars this year, but last year they had a whole bunch of stuff they sent you, and you never get to all of them, and so you sort of catch up on some of those things. And then there are some new movies that have come out on digital, and so you try to keep up as best you can, but. I mean, Mick and I have podcasts that we do, so we have ways to fill up our day, but it's not the same as it was. And you find your mind is not quite as sharp as it used to be because it's sometimes hard to tell what day it is.
Yeah, and I've been writing, but it's really hard to motivate myself to do that writing and creating things and the like. Also been watching some series from around the world that I've found really interesting, as well as catching up on more obscure movies. There are a couple of, Freud and Babylon Berlin are 2 series that just have blown me away. Freud is Austrian and Babylon Berlin is German. So doing that, and I'm safely hiking every day, trying to keep healthy and get some fresh air outside. But yeah, it's it's a problem. It used to be, you know, we'd go out and have meetings at restaurants or coffee houses, or go to the studios and go to screenings and things like that. And it's just not possible anymore.
Yeah.
Well, we have to wait. Or we are hopeless. Like, at least we put 1 year between now and in the future, and I think that we can do, and maybe not come back to real normality, but you know, I can come to LA and you can bring me in that place that you used to bring me to have. Exactly. I don't want to think we can do that stuff anymore.
They have actually opened their patio up again until the riots. They were open yesterday, and I actually had lunch there. There was nobody around me, and now they're closed for a few days because of the riots.
Of course. Well,
that's they opened up, they shut down.
That's another problem. That's another problem. Well, you know, I really hope you guys keep writing, keep having ideas, don't give up. Joe, what's going on with those 3 projects? You were going to Cannes Film Festival after Lucca to find finances to go into production. Any news, even if now the situation is
well, the news sort of stopped. There hasn't been any news. The news is there's no news, and there won't be for a while, because, you know, even when somebody says, yeah, I want to make your movie in this environment, they are going to have to think twice about it.
They told me that in any way the producer are, you know, like heavily looking for new ideas and buying stuff, scripts, just to be prepared for, you know, the reopening. That's true.
Sure, everybody, you always want to prepare, but I think the timeline that they're operating on is very fanciful. I think that they're really severely underestimating how much of a change has taken place.
Thank you both so much for your presence, and I will continue to keep in touch in some way. And we are thinking to organize the festival at the beginning of October. And maybe we can speak again, and we can organize a conference.
Sorry, this is my phone telling me that there's a curfew
going on. So, leaving on a happier note while we're getting an emergency alert for
okay.
the riot.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mick. Bye.
Talk soon. Bye.
Hi to Cynthia.